Wherever you are, it might be on your way to your next repetition, or maybe you are in your bath. Wherever that might be welcome to another episode of Vilyrik. Vilyrik is a podcast dedicated to voices, singing, and opera. If voice is your thing, then you're in the right place. Let me welcome you to this 9th episode of Vilyrik. And today I have the greatest pleasure to bring to you the American teacher, Claudia Friedlander. She's a vocal pedagogue, and she is also well known for 2 books she has written about singing. The Singer's Audition and Career Handbook, and the other book, is the subject of this interview. It's called The Complete Vocal Fitness. What I really love about the Complete Vocal Fitness, it's because it's really easy to apply the principle of fitness to a better understanding of your body, and therefore it will bring you to a more effective way of singing. Without much further ado, I propose to dig into this interview and to let Claudia talk about her journey into singing. But a little note. You might notice my weird accent. It's because, like Hercule Poirot, I'm from Little Belgium. My name is Milan and I will be your hostess for today. So, first question is the same for everyone, and it's for the audience to get to know you a bit. So the first question is quite simple. It's just, how did you become a singer?
Well, I actually started studying singing seriously rather late in life, but I always wanted to sing. I remember when I was 3 years old and my parents would play old records of musicals, and sometimes you'd get to see like The Wizard of Oz on television, and I would listen to these Broadway musicals and think, that's for me, I'm going to do that. And then I was very disappointed when I was in school and I would sing or try to sing in the choruses, and I would audition for the school plays and nobody wanted me to sing. Looking back, I think as a child, I just had a very strident and powerful voice. I think that a lot of people who have the kinds of voices or attitudes that would make you a great singer once you grow up, it's not really that way when you're a kid. Because my voice was just rather penetrating and annoying. And so it was a great source of sadness for me that I could never sing with my friends and I wouldn't get to be in the musical. So I loved music and I picked up the clarinet instead. And I played the clarinet very well and everybody wanted to hear me play the clarinet. So I did that for a while. And then once I was out of college and I was teaching at a community music school, and the voice teachers on the faculty with me at this school produced an opera, and they invited me to play in the pit orchestra for it. And I got so excited about singing again, and I thought, I'm going to try this again. And some things had happened in my life between the time that I had been a disappointed child and a young adult. In particular, I had had the opportunity to do some body work and had discovered that I just had a lot of chronic muscular tension that was keeping me from really breathing fully and keeping my throat free and being able to coordinate my articulators, my jaw, my tongue, etc., really well. And so I started taking voice lessons again, and now my voice was no longer annoying or strident, and people wanted to hear me sing. And it was just such a joy that I could finally learn to do this thing that I'd wanted to do for so long. And then I went to grad school and I was still studying clarinet, but I was also studying voice, and I gave up the clarinet in favor of singing and have just been completely fascinated with singing and pedagogy and how to teach people how to sing better ever since then. So my learning to sing and becoming really excited about, how do you learn to sing and how does the way that your body works, impact how easy it is for you to learn to sing. I've all of this interest sort of renewed itself in my mid-20s, and it's nice because learning to sing and also having it in mind to teach other people to sing, these things just arose at the same time, and I really enjoy both. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, yes, it really does. Is this because of all the work you had to do around body tensions that you eventually build up the complete vocal fitness?
Yes, because I didn't know anything about studying singing until I started up again in my mid-20s. And it was so obvious to me that the condition of my physical instrument had a big impact on how it functioned. And so I was actually very surprised when I went to a conservatory and found out that this was not a thing that people thought about. Um, I was very surprised to find out that voice teachers just thought that, like, whatever instrument you walk into the room with, that's your instrument, and it will not be changed. It will not be conditioned. Because I'd also, once I had started getting rid of this tension and freeing my body up, and I talk about this in the preface to Complete Vocal Fitness, I also discovered that I enjoyed exercise, which in my life I'd never enjoyed before. So I started finding out about exercise, and I found out that the body is very changeable, that you can use exercise and movement to improve your function, your physical function in pretty much every way. And the people that I was studying with and the singers that I was studying alongside with had never really thought about this. So I became very curious and decided that maybe that should be my contribution to vocal pedagogy, because we have so much wonderful material that's been generated by sports scientists and fitness coaches, methods for conditioning the body and for improving flexibility and strength in the various components of our vocal anatomy. So it just seemed to me that this was a whole area of inquiry that had not been tapped yet. And I really wanted to find out if it was possible to optimize the body for good performance in singing the same way that it was possible to optimize the body for peak performance in other sports.
And I suspect the answer is yes.
I believe it is very strongly yes.
Did you encounter any obstacles, considering that your way of teaching singing is very unique in a way?
Well, I don't know if I would describe it as obstacles. I will say that it took a long time. I first started talking to other singers and other voice teachers about the importance of fitness, I think back in 2005 or so. Classical Singer magazine had invited me to write an article about singing and fitness because the people who were running the magazine at the time, I guess, had come across something that I had written or somebody that I had talked to, and they became interested in the fact that there was a voice teacher who was also a fitness trainer. So I got to write this huge article for Classical Singer. It's the first thing I ever published, which was very exciting. And I gave a workshop for their convention, which was here in New York City back in the time. And what I found is that when I would talk to people about this, they thought, oh, that's such an interesting idea, but you're kind of crazy. They weren't really connecting the dots, and so I continued to try for a while, and I eventually wrote a series of articles for Classical Singer. My column was called Musings on Mechanics, and maybe I'll get back to that at some point. But the magazine gave me this wonderful platform for talking to their audience of singers about vocal anatomy and vocal pedagogy and the ways in which fitness principles could help us sing better. And so there was some interest, but I think that between the time that I wrote my article in 2005 and the time that I was invited to write Complete Vocal Fitness, which came out now a year and a half ago, 2.5 years ago. Yes, 2.5 years ago. Complete Vocal Fitness came out in June of 2017, and it was very well received. It's been very well reviewed, and it really did take 12, 13 years of talking to people about fitness and advocating for it to become something that the wider community has become interested in. And now lots of people are interested in it. Right before the book came out, I was invited to participate in a panel on singing and fitness. In the United States here, we have an organization called the Voice Foundation, and it's a professional organization for voice doctors and scientists and voice teachers. And they have an annual meeting in Philadelphia every year. And their entire Friday morning special session was devoted to singing and fitness. And we had a whole panel of people who were voice teachers and doctors, all talking about it. And everybody who came was so interested and they asked such great questions. And it was just so gratifying to me that our community is becoming much more curious and interested in the ways that fitness concepts can really help us to fine-tune our instruments and make us better singers. I was very frustrated at first because it seemed to me that there were so many singers who were so talented and so passionate and so committed, but if they weren't going to work on their bodies in a way that would unlock certain things, at some point they would hit a wall. For example, I was seeing a lot of singers who might just have some subtle postural distortions that were affecting their breathing or affecting their neck. And they could work and work and work on their technique and never quite access the things that they needed to. Maybe they wouldn't be able to sing as high or as low as they wanted to, or be able to have the kind of stamina that they wanted. And it had nothing to do with their technique. It had to do with the condition of their body, and maybe not even such a big thing, things that fitness specialists know how to address fairly easily. But because nobody ever showed them how to improve their upper body alignment, or nobody ever showed them how to improve their oxygen consumption, which is really important for being able to sing a long phrase, they would get to the point where they would just give up because they felt like they just couldn't get good enough to be able to do what they wanted to do. So I feel like just some very simple information about fitness can make all the difference in the lives and careers of people who want to learn to sing well.
And how is the current situation in America? I know that coronavirus made a huge break on everything, push the pause button. But in general, what is the situation in American music schools concerning body as the physical instrument? Is it something that is addressed in classes?
I don't know how to make a big generalization about it, but it seems to me that at American conservatories, there is still not very good instruction in anatomy and physiology for singers. I do see that my book is being adopted some places, and that makes me really happy because I think that it fills a gap in this. But when I go around and give workshops at conservatories, I still hear very fundamental and basic questions that make me wish that the singers and the pedagogy students and the voice teachers had the means to really study anatomy in a more functional way. I think that probably now things are not so different from when I was in graduate school, and my situation was, I went to the pedagogy classes and I read, especially when I was doing my doctoral studies, I read every pedagogy book that I could get my hand on, and I really studied hard all of the anatomy, but I just was not able to comprehend it in a functional way. I would go and read this book, and then I would go and have a voice lesson with my voice teacher, and I could not understand how this information related to what I was learning about technique. And I think it's difficult. I was not a very good student of science, and so I really needed to learn all this very slowly and methodically. One of the things that I share in Complete Vocal Fitness is that if I hadn't had the opportunity to learn to be a fitness trainer, I don't know how I ever would have understood about anatomy, because the physics of breath management and the function of the larynx, it's such a complex structure. All of these little movements and the joints and the muscles that create them, it just made my head explode when I tried to study them. But then when I learned to be a fitness trainer and I could look at things like how your elbow works, the elbow just moves back and forth in one direction. And so you can start to understand how joints work, and you can start to understand the role of muscles in making those joints work. And so gradually, after learning about elbows and knees and hips and shoulders and watching people do these simple movements over and over and over again, you start to understand how a squat works. And then eventually I began to understand how the larynx functions. It might not be so difficult for other people, but it was hard for me because I had a tough time understanding the physics of it and the science of it. I figured if I can understand this, then anybody can, if I can figure out how to explain it in terms that made sense to me. So I don't think that things are so different here from where you are. I think you're very fortunate that you had the opportunity to study anatomy and movement in a way that actually made sense for your singing. And I think it's a missed opportunity. I think that if maybe not even just voice students, but musicians in general, if they could just understand a little bit more about the physical mechanics of how we play our instruments, how our instruments are constructed, it would really accelerate progress. And it would help to, not just for singers, but for example, I know cellists can develop tensions and arthritis in their arms in ways that can make it difficult for them to keep playing. But if they understood right away how the muscles and joints in their arms function when they have to move a bow or finger pitches on the strings, how to condition their arms to do that well, then they would learn to play more efficiently and comfortably, just the same way that we can learn to optimize our voices and engage our vocal anatomy much more efficiently.
And do you have any advice or suggestions for someone, a singer or a student that finds him or herself alone at home without the possibility to go to a teacher for some lessons? What would you suggest him or her to do?
Well, I guess the first thing that I would recommend they do is find out, now that the performances have been postponed, now that your classes are postponed, now that maybe you can't see your voice teacher or you can't see them in the same way or as regularly as you would like, I think first and foremost what's important is to just come back to, why do you sing? What makes you want to sing? What are you curious about? And what is fun about it? What can you be playful about? And I think that this could be an opportunity for singers to just explore their instruments from the inside. So you don't even necessarily need an anatomy book to do this. I think that if singers could really just take the time to explore themselves internally, take more time to breathe, maybe meditate a little bit, and be very curious about, how does your instrument work? What does it mean to take a deep breath? What does it feel like? How would you like to maybe take a fuller breath? What does it feel like once you're done exhaling? Because the books are not nearly as important as the internal map that you have of your own voice. You're the only one who can play your instrument. And even if you don't really know the concepts or the scientific terms, for all of the anatomy that you're engaging while you're singing, your nervous system knows where all the moving parts are. Your nervous system knows how they work, even if your conscious mind doesn't. So I think this is a really good opportunity for people to just kind of like go inside and explore, find out what feels good, find out what feels authentic. Does it feel like you're sort of pumping breath into your voice to make sounds? Or does it feel like you're really expressing yourself in a very immediate and genuine way without having to worry about anybody else judging you or getting it right, or was my diction perfect? This can be a really, really hard time, especially because singing is in many ways, such a community thing, such a social thing, and we're so isolated right now. But it is an opportunity, because I think a lot about vocal education and the music profession can encourage us to be very concerned about the kind of validation and feedback that we're getting from outside ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's really about, what are you feeling and how would you like to tell us about it? How do you want to express yourself through your own voice? I think if singers can take this opportunity to just reconnect to their bodies and reconnect to their reasons for wanting to do this and what it is that they want to share, then there's the possibility that we'll all come out of this a little bit more empowered.
Yay! You've reached the end of the 9th episode. Congratulations! Thank you so much for listening. That means the world to me. If you're more curious about Claudia's work, you can check her out on the internet. Check Claudia Friedlander, her concept, her voice studio, The Liberated Voice. You can find her on Facebook. She has a very active page and she has a very good YouTube channel too. As for us, we are on the social medias too, like everyone these days. Our name is Vilyrik, it's spelled out with a K. Until our next episode, I wish you to sing out loud and have fun while doing it. Because hey, that's the whole point.